All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Elections Weekly. I'm your host, Eric Cunningham, coming to you from vacation. So that's why you get the different environment here. It's not going to look that nice. Apologies for that, but, vacation waits for no one, even though this podcast is going to definitely keep going on. This podcast doesn't wait for anyone, at least. With me, of course, we have Joe Szymanski and Dylan Brown. We're going to be talking this week about the primaries on Tuesday and some really new and interesting developments out of a bunch of other states. The big ones being Kansas and New York, oddly enough. So let's go ahead and go right into North Carolina. We'll start out with that since it's my home state. Like we had discussed on a previous edition of the podcast on episodes, we had both Senate primaries going resoundingly for Ted Budd and Sherry Beasley. Pat McCrory only won one county, his home county of Mecklenburg, and he won it by 70 votes.
Oh, I was about to say, did he win? Because last I thought he was about to lose.
He won because of the entire wedge. He actually did manage to hold on. He won the wedge, and that was enough to win the county. Sherry Beasley won 81% of the vote in her primary, but in a situation that can only be described for Democrats as suboptimal. Their turnout was really lacking, and Republican turnout was quite high. If actually you look at how the counties voted and how you look at overall party voting turnout, Republicans actually outvoted Democrats by 10 percentage points in the Tar Heel state. I'll go ahead and bring up this map I created here. You'll see why. Probably the striking thing here is keep in mind, a lot of these eastern counties have a majority Democratic voter registration. They have most voters still vote in Democratic primaries, even if they're voting for Republicans in the general election. Like Scotland County here, Democrats got they were on par. Their voting lead was on par with in these strongly Democratic counties up here. But Republicans actually won Scotland County and Richmond and Robinson and Bladen and Columbus and Lee and a bunch of other counties up here. That's worth noting. So on the other hand, Republicans managed to outvote Democrats in Watauga County and Forsyth County, which is really surprising. That's a county that voted for Joe Biden by about 14 percentage points last time. Not a great night in terms of turnout for Democrats, but it's a great night for Republicans in a bunch of ways. One of which is that Madison Cawthorn, the controversial congressman from the 11th district, was unseated in his primary. Thanks to a strong performance from Chuck Edwards in his home district, the 48th Senate district, Cawthorn was unseated by a narrow margin of about 1,300 votes. Edwards only won 3 counties, Buncombe, Henderson, and Transylvania. But he won them all by sufficient margins to clear the seat here by about 33% of the vote. Cawthorn got about 32% of the vote. Cawthorn has reacted this in 2 ways. The first was in basically graciously conceding and saying Republicans need to unite with Edwards and win the district and win in November. The second was declaring that Dark MAGA needs to be activated to do something, whatever Dark MAGA is. We're not sure.
Have we figured out what Dark MAGA means yet? Do we know?
Sounds
what
like
is
a Power Rangers villain.
Yeah, it sounds like a Power Rangers villain. It sounds like an evil spell. It sounds like a strike team, perhaps. Like you're going to go into Trump Tower and do something. I really don't know.
Let me just say, I welcome it. It sounds fun.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds more fun than Ultra MAGA. I think this is definitely an upgrade over Ultra MAGA in terms of branding. This at least sounds interesting. But regardless, he will not be representing Congress in the next Congress. But he does have 7 more months to engage in as many scandals as his heart delights in. In the 4th district, Valerie Foushee easily defeated rival Democrat Nita Alam. We had thought this district could be generally competitive in the Democratic primary here. The big reason being, of course, the strong progressive support for Nita Alam, who is running to be a progressive member of Congress and the only Muslim elected to Congress in North Carolina, but ultimately her progressive credentials were not enough to win the race or even come close, really. Or actually, she did come close. She finished only about 10 points off, so she did come close.
I'm pulling up the exact fundraising numbers, but based on 1 second, I've got Open Secrets loading up.
Mm-hmm.
Nita Alam was outspent. Valerie Foushee had $3.4 million in outside spending come for her, plus $600,000 in her own spending. Nita Alam only posted up about $800,000 total in her spending plus outside spending. So, frankly, that amount of outside spending coming in and her only going down by, I think, 9 points, 47-36, that's not bad, all things considered.
Yeah, it's certainly not as bad as it's certainly not as bad as it looked initially when there was a much larger lead. It's worth noting Lamb did win Durham thanks in large part to her strength among white voters in the county, although she did very poorly relatively in the more rural portions of the county and with non-Democratic voters, or not with the non-white voters in the county. The big problem for her was she lost Orange County by a large margin, about 14 points, and she lost every other county in the district, which again has a population. So basically, she did well in Durham, which is about half the seat, but she lost the rest of it by a larger margin. So Valerie Foushee wins the seat pretty handily. 7 percentage or 10 percentage point margin here, 9-10 points. So that's worth noting. Don Davis easily defeated Erica Smith in the 1st district on the Democratic side, and in the 7th district, Charles Graham narrowly avoided a runoff, beating Charles Evans 2 percentage points. That district is not competitive in November. Graham will be defeated. This is a Trump plus 12 seat. It's not going to be close to flipping. It is worth noting, though, and some concerning signs for Democrats. If you look at the swing districts, where turnout would be differential would be kind of noticeable. It kind of shows, it's kind of apparent. The 13th district, for example, Democrats got 44,000 votes in the 13th district. They got 44,000 voters voted in that primary. In the Republican primary, it was 54,000. That's a 10,000 vote difference in a district that Biden won by a couple of points. In the 14th district, which should be more concerning, this is the Charlotte-Gaston County-based seat. It kind of surgically, precisely targets a bunch of minority voters in Charlotte along with the wedge and then throws them in with Gaston County. Democrats only had a turnout edge about 3,000 votes in this district. This is a Biden plus 18 seat. Not saying that district is going to be competitive in November, but it should be. You would think Democrats would be doing a lot better, relatively speaking, in that seat. So, all that considered, Republicans have a pretty strong. Also on the Republican side, Bo Hines did prevail in the 13th district. Hines is initially closely tied himself to Cawthorn and has now distanced himself pretty heavily from Cawthorn. It'll be yet to see if Hines can win this district. I think we have this rated as leans Republican or toss-up. It's one of the two.
I mean, the real question is, will Dark MAGA come for Bo Hines and take some of the vote away?
Yeah, Dark MAGA is going to come in to get you. Yeah. Those North Carolina primaries, interesting. Another primary that I mentioned, Donna Stroud did prevail over in her primary or in her judicial primary over Beth Freshwater Smith. This is a interesting proxy war between Phil Berger Jr. and a more establishment Raleigh Republican and Stroud. But those are really all the interesting North Carolina results. So go ahead and throw it to Joe, and we'll go into. Or actually, let's. If you want to talk a little bit more about it, that's fine. I don't think you will, but we can go into Pennsylvania unless anyone has anything else to say about North Carolina.
No.
Yep. Let's go right ahead into Pennsylvania then. Let's go right into the shit show.
Oh, now we're calling us now.
Well, I think you guys earned it. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true. So, Pennsylvania, there are 3 very easy races to talk about. Then statewide, we had 3 very easy races. The both Democratic primaries for Senate and governor and the Republican primary for governor. They're all done. The leading candidates won there with double-digit margins. I don't want to talk about Doug Mastriano anymore. I've talked about him too much already over the last couple of days.
Going to be talking about him a lot more when he starts running.
Bad. That's all we're going to leave it at. But the Senate primary, from what we can tell, it seems like at this point that McCormick will not make up the margin on Dr. Oz in the remaining ballots left in the primary. However, we do expect the total in the difference that Oz has to probably go below 1,000 votes. Which would make this by far the closest statewide primary Pennsylvania has seen in a long, long, long time.
Wow.
And you know what? I'm going to be fair. That's a closer margin than I expected. I thought McCormick was going to be well behind, a respectable second, but well behind.
No, again, the same. I'm going to be writing an article about this, but again, polling issues in Pennsylvania rise up again. And, I think just the big problem of just for whatever reason, there was just, again, a miss within the polling for a candidate of a strong and respected candidate from Western Pennsylvania. This is another, basically a second straight, midterm primary season where we've seen that. So, it's very hard for me to say here and say, there's an issue of Pennsylvania polling. There's been an issue of Pennsylvania polling for a while. There's been an issue of Pennsylvania ballot counting for a while. The way in which and the way we report ballots. There's been an issue, obviously, for a while. State local polling has been an issue for a while. There's with F&M kind of falling off a little bit recently. There haven't really been any good local pollsters who have stepped up. So, it's a bit of a problem. It's been a problem. And, again, it'll be Oz as the nominee, I believe, at this point. I think he's a fine enough nominee for the party. I don't think he'll have any of the issues that Kathy Barnett could have had at all. He's someone who I think can certainly do well in a general election. But, it's going to be very interesting to see kind of the dynamics potentially between the governor's ticket and the Senate ticket, how that will go in that regard. It'll be very interesting to kind of see the dynamics between Mastriano and Oz, how they could potentially interact with each other and how they'll kind of each deal with their own, issues potentially, deal with each other's kind of quirks, I guess one would say. Interesting to see how they deal with that. But right now, we're not going to have the Senate primary officially called yet, probably not for another 2 to 3 weeks. Once the recount and recanvass is done, a late date was set, I believe it was June 7th or 8th was the date I saw that the automatic recount would be completed. Remember, automatic recount in Pennsylvania, any statewide race below half percentage points, we're going to be there. No doubt at this point. So it's going to be close. But I would say that Oz, unless something crazy happens in the recount, Oz is going to be the nominee at this point. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens here. Those are really kind of some of the big stories statewide in Pennsylvania. I know we're going to give it over to Dylan to talk about the Democratic primary in the 12th district in Pennsylvania, a similarly close race. But, the Senate primary, I think you can pretty firmly say that Dr. Oz is going to be the nominee at this point by a very, very slim margin. Certainly a slimmer margin than a lot of people were expecting because of the polling data that was out there. It's really kind of the first time we've seen a polling miss from pollsters in a Republican primary so far. Them in Ohio were pretty spot on in those statewide races there. The ones in, North Carolina were pretty spot on for the statewide races there. So this is the first kind of statewide primary polling miss that we've really seen. Even Nebraska, the last couple of internal polls replaced by Jim Pillen, ended up being relatively accurate to what the final margins were in that race as well. So, this is really kind of the first time we've seen a truly a bit of a miss. McCormick was routinely in third, and it seemed to be a relatively distant third in most of the last polls that were released for the Senate race. Obviously, of course, that did not happen. So what's going to be really interesting to see kind of, the reaction to that, kind of the first time that we've seen a polling miss to a certain extent in these races.
Yeah. So PA 12 actually didn't have much of a polling miss at all. So when we left off on Tuesday, Summerlee was up because of a surge in election day votes for her. But we didn't know how that was going to shake out. It was a very small margin. I think when we went off the air, she was only ahead by 47 votes. But she ended up expanding her lead after Allegheny had a memory stick issue that delayed the count. We got the last in-person results, and Summerlee expanded her lead to about 700 votes. There's 1,800 provisionals still outstanding, but provisionals are just in-person votes counted weirdly, so those are expected to go to Summerlee by a pretty respectable margin. And even if they don't, Irwin would need to win those by about 25 points in order to make up the difference, and that just seems unlikely. So what's really interesting about this race is, unlike the Nita Alam Valerie Fouché race, progressives did spend here. They spent a lot here, probably most of the resources they had at the moment. Steve Irwin and groups supporting him spent around $4 million on the race, versus around $2 million for Summerlee, and she just barely eked it out. I gotta admit, I'm a little surprised by the result. I kind of expected her to go down this time. That early mail-in lead that he built up of about 20 points seemed insurmountable, but those election day votes really came in for her.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, were you going to say something, Eric? Sorry.
Oh no, the only thing I really have to note here is that I have long said that the Westmoreland County having any portion of this district makes no sense. Summerlee would have won this race by 4 points if Westmoreland was not in the seat at all.
Correct.
The Westmoreland portion voted for Trump by 28 points. There's only like 11,000 voters in the primary here, as opposed to 102 on the Democratic side. And in that portion, Steve Irwin won by 36 percentage points. Or 33 percentage points, sorry.
Yes.
I think this shows pretty clearly a fair cultural divide between the Allegheny portion and the Westmoreland portion. That's just my only real note here is that I hope that when they're drawing districts in the future, Pennsylvania map drawers take into account something like this. Because if I'm Summerlee, I'm not necessarily wanting to go to this Westmoreland County portion and start, engaging in campaign events. They're probably not going to be huge fans for even the Democratic side. I would say that much.
No.
But that's just my little spiel about the complete nonsensical draw of PA 12. That's just my one little gripe there.
I am kind of curious what the rationale was for that.
To make the other Allegheny seat more competitive. And by more competitive, I mean to vote for Biden by, I think, like, what's it, a 5 or 6 point Biden seat?
About 5.5 points.
Yeah, as opposed to it would have been at best like a Biden +1 if they had drawn it just entirely in Allegheny.
Gotcha.
Granted, there's other ways they could have drawn in portions of, I think, Washington County. I know has some more Democratic leaning portions that would have made a little bit more sense to draw into than the Westmoreland portion. But yeah, that's just beside it. I think progressives clearly did get a very big win though with Summerlee. And I think
absolutely.
Joe even talked about this potentially a year ago. I believe he wrote an article last year about the best states for progressives to target, right? And you're like, it's not Texas, it's not North Carolina, or it's states like Pennsylvania where you've got, places like the 12th district. I believe it. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure you wrote an article.
I did. Over that. I know which one you're talking about exactly.
Yeah, I remember that article as well. No, Summerlee, I think was probably the best recruit Justice Democrats could have gotten for this seat.
I agree, very bigly.
Yeah, and I think it shows by the fact that she overcame a fundraising lead of nearly 100% of what she spent. I mean, I think that just shows how credible a candidate she was. I started off the night thinking it was a really bad night for progressives. And as we're going to get to with Oregon, it was actually a really good night for them. They knocked off a lot of their targets. Steve, just to note, most places have called it. Dave Wasserman has called this race, but Steve Irwin has not conceded. I'm not sure what he's waiting for. The provisionals are expected to favor Lee, and even if they don't, he would need an absurd margin that he's not going to get to overcome the gap. So I'm not sure what he's waiting on there. But that's basically it. I think this is good momentum for progressives, especially going into Georgia and Texas, where they have 3 races next week.
And we haven't even talked about the big one, which is that Conor Lamb didn't even win a single county in the Senate primary.
I love that.
He lost every county in the state to Big Dude. I think he only got twice as many votes as almost barely more. I mean, relatively speaking, I think it was something like 56, 23 to 10 with Kenyatta getting a decent chunk of the vote.
Kenyatta did very well in Philadelphia, only narrowly losing it to Fetterman. But I mean,
it would have been very funny if Conor Lamb had not gotten any counties and Kenyatta had gotten Philadelphia.
I think that would have been the only thing that would have made the night better.
That'd be the rough equivalent of that Ohio primary with Jim Renossi winning more votes, but somehow losing votes, not getting any counties because the farmer guy won a bunch of them.
Joe, I don't know if you can check this real quick, but Armin in the chat asked if he underperformed Summer Lee in Allegheny.
I'm sure he did. I'm not a big enough guy within the numbers to know that, but I'm sure in the parts of Allegheny, I think if you probably did a Lee to Lamb comparison, Lamb/Fetterman comparison vote, I'm sure you see Fetterman doing significantly better.
I know that. I think honestly, the only county that was within like 10 points that I can think of was Beaver. I know Allegheny wasn't particularly close. Beaver was fairly
Philadelphia
close.
was close. Philadelphia, I think, was within
but it was not close for Lamb. Lamb was not close to winning that one.
No, not even close. No, Lamb. What a bad day! What a bad night for the lame, moderate white guys or more electable thesis. Between Irwin and Lamb, that's a bad night for them.
It's very interesting to kind of see the trajectory of Conor Lamb's career now. That he was someone who was very much held up on the platform as like a successor to Bobo in that Senate seat or a potential replacement for Tom Wolf. And now his political career might be kind of dead.
You want to do an interesting comparison. John Ossoff to Conor Lamb. Ossoff loses a special election, gets elected to Senate. Lamb wins a special election, gets trounced in a Senate primary.
Very bigly lose.
Very bigly.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move to kind of zoom through Oregon and Idaho real quick so we can talk about the big one, which is probably Kansas and New York's congressional situations because those are solidified.
Yes. So just to quickly go through Oregon, progressives kind of won every major race they were contesting. In Oregon's 5th, they were targeting Kurt Schrader, Jamie McLeod Skinner. I don't remember the exact margin, and I don't think it's been called yet because vote counting in Oregon is as ridiculous as it is in Pennsylvania.
Correct.
But McLeod Skinner was winning by a very comfortable margin. And once again, she was outspent by a lot. As we mentioned on Tuesday,
is that the Crypto Bro seat?
No, the Crypto Bro seat was the 6th.
Okay.
We're gonna get there. That might be my favorite race of the night. McLeod Skinner was very much outspent, but Kurt Schrader also really pissed off the local county parties to the point where they endorsed against the incumbent, something I think is relatively unheard of for a candidate with no major scandals. Schrader had policies that Democrats didn't like, but that's not exactly abnormal. Cinema and Manchin, say hello. But McLeod Skinner is winning. We expect her to fully win once all the votes are counted, but they haven't been yet, so it hasn't been called. Then there's Oregon's 6th. This might be my favorite race of the night. The Protect Our Future PAC, which is supporting incredibly random candidates with seemingly no ideological consistency. They're supporting Carrick Flynn and Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett in Texas's 30th, I believe. I could be wrong about that. Is running as a AOC adjacent candidate. And they're also supporting Carrick Flynn, who is running on the I'm Conor Lamb and Richie Torres, but in Oregon banner. They spent over $12 million boosting Carrick Flynn. He ended up losing by, I believe the final margin was 41-19 against Andrea Solanas, who was supported by some of the local county parties, I believe, and the Congressional Progressive Caucus. She was also massively outspent. Let me check the final numbers on her. Solanas spent about $1.4 million on her race. Flynn spent over $13 million. when it's all said and done, probably closer to 14 in combined outside spending and his own fundraising. Probably
That
about
sounds
14.
like a lot of money.
It's a lot of money just burnt. Like that money's never coming back. I mean, it was a crypto backed pack, so it was never coming back anyway. But I mean, it's kind of amazing that Carrick Flynn went down so aggressively. There was also a scandal which I neglected to mention last week, where the House Majority PAC endorsed Carrick Flynn. So, also as another loss for Sean Patrick Maloney, the other loss we're going to get to, but this is a big loss for him. So I don't know if Solanas is favored necessarily, but this is a big win for the Progressive Caucus.
Definitely favoring that Oregon 6th district. That was either a fair map or the current map we have right now. That was a map that was a seat that was expected to kind of be a suburban voter sink a little bit more for Democrats.
Yeah,
Salinas certainly favored.
Yeah, and I just wanted to briefly mention, I didn't pay close attention to the race, but progressives got their pick for Oregon governor as well. So that's all there. The 4th district, which was mildly competitive for a progressive candidate, went overwhelmingly to Val Hoyle. So that's all.
And real quick, I'll mention Idaho. There's really only 2 interesting races to note in Idaho, aside from some state legislative races, which saw strongly conservative candidates unseat, I think, a dozen lawmakers in primaries. In the gubernatorial race, Trump's chosen candidate, Janice McGeachin, was utterly demolished by incumbent Governor Brad Little in the primary. She lost by 20 points, a really, really horrific margin for a Trump-endorsed candidate. Conservatives did, however, perform better, or rather, I should say insurgent candidates, performed better in the attorney general race, where Raul Labrador easily unseated the current incumbent attorney general, the 5-time incumbent there. He had promised to be more of an activist attorney general, more engaged in political lawsuits and whatnot. So that's the big win for conservatives in Idaho. There's also some local level. There's a lot of candidates with ties to local militias, which is somewhat concerning, but none of them managed to win any statewide office as far as I can tell. It's worth noting Janice McGeachin did win, I think, 4 counties, all of them in the northern corner of Idaho, which is quickly becoming one of the most radically conservative portions of the country, to put it mildly. In November, there will be Ammon Bundy is on the ballot in November in Idaho. We'll see how many votes he gets for governor. So, we'll see. But, as far as the governor race go, Janice McGeachin got punted to the curb by Idaho voters. And now we'll go into it's probably going to finish up the rest of the show, is the new congressional maps. So first off, Kansas Supreme Court. And what would be the first time the Kansas Supreme Court has sided with conservatives in recent memory? They upheld the Kansas new congressional districts, the mild Republican gerrymander that redraws Sharice Davids into about a Biden plus 4 or 5 district, one that'll be competitive in a presidential or in an off year. They upheld this, and they upheld both legislative maps. This was somewhat unexpected. I think the congressional maps were seen as more likely to survive than the legislative ones were seen as more likely to survive. But to see that congressional map, upheld is really, really surprising. This is a map that to say it's compact would be kind of lying. It's not.
It would be a lie.
Yeah, it's a really strange map. It's not an overwhelming Republican gerrymander. They kind of went to the Nebraska school of gerrymandering, where they just draw really weird lines, and it doesn't actually really change the result. Democrats have been pushing for a map that would actually have a not vote sink Sharice Davids, that would have a competitive 4th somewhat, and would also make the 3rd district, I believe, not the 3rd district, a second somewhat competitive district that contains Topeka, Lawrence. The current map does none of that. The current map, I'm going to load up here just the editable version here in Dave's redistricting for you. Basically, the current map draws in Johnston County, which is the suburban county that shifted strongly towards Democrats as of late. It used to be a Republican stronghold. Joe Biden became the first Democrat to win it since, I believe, FDR, which is a pretty impressive feat. The new map is really strange. It splits Kansas City in half. The mayor of Kansas City afterwards tweeted that Kansas City needs to become a city-state and then deleted it. Gives you an idea of how happy they are about this.
Wait, I'm sorry. Who said that?
The mayor of Kansas City.
Republican, Democrat?
Democrat. Yeah, he deleted
That's a
it.
choice.
Yes, that is a choice. So, yeah, this map is strange. The 4th district is fine. The 3rd district is really weird because it actually grabs in and just takes in all of Lawrence, which is just somewhat amusing. It's worth noting Liberal is also in the seat, so it has Liberal and Lawrence both in the district. One could say it's the most liberal district in Kansas, if you apologize for my pun there. But you'll notice the 2nd district here is about Trump plus 17, and then the 3rd is about Biden plus 5. If you go back to the Senate race, again, there's not much of a shift here. Go back to the governor race. It's a 2-2 map, so not even really that proportional in that regard. And then in 2016, the 3rd would have narrowly voted for Mitt Romney. Go even further back to 2012, and this probably would have been a double-digit Romney seat. Yeah, it would have actually been more favorable to Republicans than the 2nd district. So, this Kansas map was upheld. What do you guys think of this? Is this, this is a really strange decision in a lot of ways. This kind of goes against what the court usually does in Kansas. It's a Democratic-controlled court, generally pretty favorable to liberals. So, what do you guys think here?
I don't have much of an opinion on the maps themselves. I will say Democrats are not doing so hot in the legal battles over these seats.
They kind of got a little bit high on their own supply. As recently as February or March, I think you had people regularly tweeting, "Are Democrats winning redistricting? They're gaining this many districts," and then it's just been loss after loss after loss the last few months. It's kind of been really surprising to see.
Yeah, I mean, Democrats went from kind of winning redistricting to very decisively losing the redistricting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, war. And even a place like North Carolina is only a temporary win. That map is generally, I think it's generally recognized that map is not going to last more than a term.
But yeah, I don't have many opinions on the map itself. I'm surprised they didn't go for a seat that kind of vote sinks Sharice Davids and makes that 2nd district not very competitive at all.
I think they're just not concerned about that flipping in the immediate future. The fact they took Lawrence out is probably the biggest indication, though, that that's the area that they would be concerned by. If that were to, putting that in the big 1st district is pretty egregious as far as things are concerned.
Yeah, I was surprised by this. I think by communications that there were a lot of people surprised by this. It is certainly a win for Republicans, no doubt. Mainly because not only does it solidify that 2nd district by making sure that Lawrence and Topeka are not put together, which I think even if they were forced to redraw, I think Republicans would have instead done what Dylan had suggested and probably would have done some type of sync with most of Johnson County and then Lawrence together. I think that's probably what Republicans would have done in response. But either way, now this does make Sharice Davids certainly in a toss-up seat for 2022. It will certainly be interesting. Again, that's only about a Biden plus 5 seat. This Kansas, depending on the races, could certainly be a state that certainly sees swings backs in certain part of their suburb to, former Republican levels in some areas. Johnson, we kind of getting in more to the middle/outer exurbs of that Johnson County part there. That's a part where it could be difficult, where it could be hard. And you could see that kind of swing back. We've seen in other suburban counties across the nation this year. That's really where this race is getting interesting. Certainly makes it much easier to have Republicans go 4-0 again in Kansas compared to what it was back in under the old map, or even under potentially a sync map. That's for sure as well.
Yep. And so Kansas out of the way, let's go to New York. It's worth noting, everything we say here could change. It's expected that around 8 or 9 o'clock, the final congressional map will be submitted, which we'll discuss potential changes to it here. But New York Special Master has released the proposed congressional map, and it is a congressional map. I can say that for sure. Whether it's an improvement over the old map, but it got some curious choices. So, this is the map
What's not going to change is what I have to say about Sean Patrick Maloney. That won't change.
Yeah. So this is a map. So this is better for Republicans than before. This has 5 Republican seats, which doesn't seem like a big improvement, but actually, if you look at it, if you go back to 2016, that 5 jumps to 6, and there's a bunch of hyper competitive seats: the 22nd, the 18th, the 2nd, the 3rd. All these districts are changed. And then if you go to the governor race, the worst case scenario, even at the 20th district, which is Paul Tonka's seat, that one voted nearly Republican as well. So this is a big improvement for Republicans. It's better than the one before, but it's got some problems. Let's go into them real quick. Upstate. Well, what'd you do to Upstate? This is really weird. Why did they just split Erie County into 3? Why is Buffalo with the 26? Why is this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. This is kind of strange. I really don't understand this draw. And then downstate. Let's look at New York City and Long Island. Oh, no. It's not good. It's not good.
Our friend had a he had
a
lot
conniption. I think conniption is the right word.
Conniption is the right
word.
So
this is dumb. Let's look at what New Yorkers are complaining about. If you live in Manhattan and you know any person from Manhattan, they're probably complaining about this district, because if there's one thing New Yorkers want you to know, the Upper East Side and the Upper West Side are not the same thing. They don't like each other, and they shouldn't be in the same congressional district.
Yes, you should. You're all rich white people. Deal with it. You should all be in the same district. You're all the same rich white person dirtbag.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Now, I'm just looking at the sea of blue right here. I don't see a difference. Gonna look at the sea of white. I don't see a huge difference, but people say it's there. I'm inclined to listen. The 10th district here is really, really strange.
The 10th district is only problematic in what it's about to unleash on us.
Bill de Blasio.
Bill de Blasio. Yeah. He's back.
Yeah, he's back.
It's de Blasio time, baby.
Yep, and what's probably the most egregious bit of this map is just how it slices up South Brooklyn kind of surgically. The 11th district here takes in like a bunch of these areas that don't really have anything in common. The Orthodox Jews are actually chopped into, I think, 2 or 3 congressional districts here. It's a really strange choice. It's not what I would have done. But yeah, let's talk about Bill de Blasio, because that's the big elephant in the room here.
Not just Bill de Blasio. Bill de Blasio is the elephant in the room here, but
Simca Felder
and a very prominent progressive state senator, Yuli New, is looking at running here as well.
Don't forget Andrew Yang lives in this congressional district as well.
Joe, shut up.
Don't forget that.
Shut up, Joe. I don't want to hear it.
I'm just pointing out.
What have you done, Joe? You summoned the Yang Gang. You summoned the Yang Gang.
Joe, if I have to live through a Bill de Blasio, Andrew Yang general election, I blame you.
No, it wouldn't be. It would be a Bill de Blasio, Simca Felder, Andrew Yang primary is what you'd be.
That's even worse.
Andrew Yang's not running in the Democratic primary anymore. He started his own party.
But it's New York. He can run on both. It's New York, Dylan. He can run on both ballots.
Oh, God,
Joe.
But yeah,
stop it. No.
Yes, but for now, this is the map. There could be changes. Again, the final map, this is just the proposed map. The final map is coming out later. The Orthodox Jews have been fairly persistent in not liking this configuration one bit. The Manhattan people have been very persistent in the Upper East Side hates the Upper West Side and vice versa. Carolyn Maloney and Jerry Nadler are in the same seat right now. And then we'll go to, the interesting thing here, of course, if this is redrawn, given the way this 3rd district is drawn right here, this is only a Biden plus 6 seat, contains portions of New York City. If they get a Republican seat, if the 10th is redrawn, draws in South Brooklyn, you could have 3 Republicans in New York City, which is a thing.
I'm sorry. I do want to go back to the Jerry Nadler, Carolyn Maloney race, because this is the second stupidest thing about this. We haven't gotten to the dumbest thing that's happened because of this map.
Yes.
This is second dumbest. Why are they running against each other? The 10th district is Nadler's. What is going on here? Why?
Well, look, someone's got to be pushing the anti-vaccine propaganda in Congress, and it's not going to be Jerry Nadler.
Oh, you know what? If it's Nadler Maloney, I'm supporting Nadler, but why? Why is this a thing?
Because Congress people be selfish. And let's go ahead and talk about the most selfish congressperson of them all, Sean Patrick Maloney,
The
ladies and
head
gentlemen.
of the DCCC.
Yeah. So, Sean Patrick Maloney argued for the Hocklemander. In fact, felt the Hocklemander did not go far enough. It turns out he may be eating his words because now he is withdrawing from his competitive 17th congressional district right here.
Not that competitive.
Oh, no,
Biden plus 8.
Yeah, the 18th. Yeah, the 18th district. Biden plus 8. Mark Molinaro is running, I believe, in this district. He's decided that he's going to go after Mondaire Jones in the 17th.
Because that's a choice.
He's going to primary the freshman black, gay, progressive Democrat from the 17th district. And
yes, so
wow.
let's just let that sink in. Mondaire Jones was the first gay person of color elected to Congress, I believe. At least the first one out of New York, tied with Richie Torres. They were both elected at the same time. Sean Patrick Maloney decided, okay, I'm the head of the DCCC. I got to get competitive seats to go to Democrats. What am I going to do? I'm going to abandon my competitive seat. I'm going to divert resources.
And move to a seat that's exactly 2 points to the left.
And I'm going to spend millions of dollars primarying a progressive Democrat who the party generally really likes. Or I'm going to tell him, go primary your other progressive black friend, Jamal Bowman, and be a good Democrat. It's
and the best part is he didn't even tell Mondaire Jones about this before tweeting about it.
That was fun.
This is okay. Richie Torres is not a friend of the Democratic left. He really doesn't like the Democratic left. He's been very aggressive against the New York Democratic left.
I like Richie Torres. He's been pretty based.
And even he went, that's not okay.
Yeah, no, it's not okay. Let's be very. I mean, come on. Like this is it certainly makes for entertainment for me and Eric. But let's be perfectly blunt here, in that it's not an okay thing for Maloney, especially as DCC chair, DCCC chair. If he was just
Sean Patrick Maloney,
incumbent, it's still not cool. It would be unquestionable. It would be kind of questionable, but it wouldn't be man, that's really bad. No, you're head of the DCCC, and you're saying I'm going to either primary one of my own members, or I'm going to force that member to primary another member.
All for 2 percentage points in 2020.
All for 2 percentage points.
Yeah. Again, now it's worth noting the 18th was genuinely more competitive in 2016. It only went to Hillary Clinton by 0.5 percentage points. You're telling me he can't win that district? You're really telling me he's so scared of it that you can't even try?
And you're
come on.
And okay, just so everybody understands, this district that he's going to only represents a quarter of his old district.
Yeah.
This is Mondaire Jones's district. He outran Biden in this district. Biden won it by 20 points. Mondaire Jones won by 24. He solidly outran Joe Biden. And Sean Patrick Maloney says that Mondaire Jones is ideologically ill-suited for the district. I'm sorry, he outran the president of the United States on that district.
Yeah. So I think this is the old map. Yeah, let's see if this is the old map. Yeah, it's the old map. So the 18th district. Let's look at only the 18th district. The old 18th district, you can tell right here. His old seat's the 17th, right? This seat right here.
That's Mondaire Jones's district, yes.
Yeah. And this is what he wants to run. It just doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. He committed a big oopsie.
He committed a big oopsie, but honestly, the bigger oopsie and the more unforgivable oopsie is Nancy Pelosi's oopsie, because she came out and said, yeah, Sean Patrick Maloney's a great DCCC chair. I see no issue with what he's doing. Okay, look.
Now, is it going to be great when the Democrats lose 30 congressional districts and Sean Patrick Maloney's old seat is one of them?
how does he justify this? I don't understand how he justifies this decision.
Well, he justifies this because he's the head of the DCCC, and Sean Patrick Maloney needs to be in Congress because he's Sean Patrick Maloney.
He
and
doesn't
needs to be in Congress.
Okay, all this is going to do. I expect Mondaire Jones to run against him if the map doesn't change. Mondaire Jones is going to win that primary. The DCCC chair is going to lose his primary. I don't see a world where Mondaire Jones doesn't win that race.
And that's beyond embarrassing. When's the last time that's happened?
That's beyond. Sean Patrick Maloney has set the party up for an embarrassment no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And this is Democrats being Democrats. I mean, I'm as left wing as they come. This is embarrassing. This is. I don't know how. I just don't know.
But again, we'll keep you updated later tonight. The finalized map should appear. Prepare for a lot of wailing and moaning on Twitter if there is a new Orthodox 10th district. If the Upper East Side is not disconnected from the Upper West Side, we'll see. But it's going to be interesting to watch regardless. But thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate your support. You can follow us on Twitter at @DCunningham2, at Joseph Szymanski, and at Dylan W. Brown 1. We do all sorts of stuff. We publish articles. We're going to have some ratings updates coming soon. We already updated the Pennsylvania governor race. But it's really exciting. We'll be back in a couple weeks, I believe, with the Georgia election, the Georgia primary, Texas runoffs, all sorts of cool stuff coming your way. Be sure to stay tuned.
Got to be back here on Tuesday night, folks. Big night.
Follow Elections Daily. Like us on Twitter, YouTube, wherever you're watching. Appreciate your support, and we'll see you next week.